After a weekend in the Gold Coast for my brother's bachelor party, I was joined by Miranda for a night in Surfer's Paradise. There was an excellent sand sculpting competition with the Children's Stories theme. We checked that out before heading to the quirky Museum of Oddities, Ripley's Believe It or Not. The following day we made our way up to Brisbane and met up with my mum, along with her friends Vicky and Hene. After a night in the city, we spent the day exploring Queensland's state capital. We took advantage of the free entries at the Art Museum, Natural History Museum, and the State Library, which had a really eye-opening, in-depth exhibition on Aboriginal languages. What species is this?
An ibis.
Which is also known as?
Bin chicken.
The bin chicken. That's its favourite place to eat, right there. There's the chickie, and there is the bin chickie. After dinner in South Bank, we walked back to our hotel under the glimmering city lights. The following morning we left early to board our flight to Hobart, making Tasmania my final Australian state to visit. After picking up our rental vehicle and settling into our Battery Hill Hotel, we walked into town. Shall we go in, Chickie?
Yes.
Bakery time. We got a couple of different pies. Miranda, what'd you get?
I got a spiced vegetable and curry pasty.
Okay. I got myself the wallaby and blackberry pie. Go this way, honey. So we've just arrived at the Salamanca market area, and unfortunately we're not here on a Saturday. On a Saturday this whole area here completely fills up with people, and it's a very, very famous, renowned marketplace.
It's called a Welsh pie.
What's it used for?
Boiling whale blubber into oil.
We met up with our friends from back in Munich, James and Danny, along with their little man Will at Salamanca for a light snack, and made plans to meet up again the following day. Miranda and I continued down to the old harbour, which felt strangely Northern European. It had a very interesting history during the colonisation as a convict hub. Be the first of many, Miranda. Tiger snake. He looks angry. In the morning we headed for Bonorong Wildlife Sanctuary, meeting up with James, Danny and little William again. We checked out some of Tasmania's unique wildlife and learn about some of the great work they do to ensure injured animals are fully recovered before being returned to the wild, along with the breeding programs for Tasmanian devils, which are highly threatened in the wild. Just chilling out. Spin. Oh, there's your spin. Due to a contagious facial tumour disease. Miranda, there's one just here. Oh, look at him running away. So we've just arrived right now on the Tasman Peninsula, and we're making our way to Port Arthur from Hobart. So we should be there in about half an hour and get this beautiful view to take in. After saying our goodbyes, we left for the Tasman Peninsula, where we checked in at our hotel in Port Arthur before visiting the historical site. This is our place for the night in Port Arthur, the Fox and Hounds. Really, really beautiful, sort of old, looks like a little cottage place, and most importantly, look at that view. Oh.
Port Arthur Historical Site.
It's the old penal colony for the convicts. It's also the site of the Port Arthur massacre. This site is a UNESCO World Heritage listed site for its convict history, but on the 28th of April 1996 it became the site of Australia's most deadly gun massacre, where 35 people were killed and 23 people wounded by a deranged gunman, which changed Australia's gun laws for good.
Yeah, cafe, and during the massacre 20 people died in this cafe alone. So they've kept the structure as a reminder of what happened.
The historical site itself goes back to the 1830s, where a timber station was transformed into a penal colony for convicts who worked on the shipping yards supporting the new colony of Van Diemen's Land, which was Tasmania's original name.
Heading into the penitentiary now, here at Port Arthur.
Port Arthur had no roads leading to it at the time and could only be reached by sea, giving it the reputation of being inescapable. Port Arthur closed down as a penal colony in 1877. The new private owners of the land then began to dismantle the prison, and the buildings were further destroyed by fire in 1895 and then again in 1897.
Yeah, I believe this is a little potteroo.
The colony also housed a separation prison, which was a cruel and unusual form of imprisonment, by which the convicted had to sit in silence with no contact to the outside world. Also modelled under Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon designs and theories. Silence and separation was enforced in the prison to allow the convicted to reflect on their crimes. Some of these prisoners suffered this torment for many years until many succumbed to mental illness. After a dark day of reflection, exercise, fresh air and natural beauty was in need. Where are we?
Cape Raoul Track.
Cape Raoul Track. On the Tasman Peninsula. It's pretty cool. We've got here a little cleaner for your shoes so you don't bring in invasive species. Mentioned here different types of fungus. A little spray down here as well. We headed out to the Cape Raoul Track, which is one of the 3 capes that make up the Tasman Peninsula.
Chickies through.
It was a 5-hour, 14-kilometre return journey out to spectacular ocean cliffs with magnificent views.
Pretty cool. Whoa, that's a long.
Warning, these are the consequences. Isn't that right, Chicky? So we have up here a yellow-crested black cockatoo. Yeah. Not only did we have magnificent views and great weather on the hike, but we also encountered some of the resident wildlife, such as the yellow-tailed black cockatoos. As we made our way out to the end of the cape, the views started to open up and the cliffs became more and more dramatic. Here we are at Cape Raoul on the Tasman Peninsula. After 2.5 hours of hiking, we finally made it down here, and if you look down this way, next stop, Antarctica. After a brief lunch break right at the end of the cape, we made our way back. Along the way, we stumbled upon an echidna going about his business. Tasmania's echidnas are actually fluffier than their mainland counterparts due to the extra warmth required to survive the cooler environments.
Tasman arch.
Let's go this way. Would you consider that an arch?
That is one hell of an arch.
After the hike, we visited the surprisingly impressive Tasman Arch, a cliff tidal area known as the Devil's Kitchen, and a town known as Do Town, where every house name includes the word do. It says if I do.
If I do,
Do fish.
do we're in Do Town. Didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo. Much ado.
Only everyone's houses say do something on them.
This one says do in time.
Do in time. Do us.
Is that your favourite one, Chicky? As the sun began to set, we made our way up to Spring Beach, which is nice and close for our following day's adventures, coming to a few close calls with many of the local wallabies jumping out onto the road.
Say something to like have them look.
I can't say anything, they're going crazy. Not only did our Airbnb have two lovely hosts, they also had two adorable puppies. This is the view from our Airbnb here in Spring Beach. Welcome to. After a home-cooked breakfast on the veranda overlooking a pristine beach, we unfortunately had to leave to catch our ferry from Triabunna to Maria Island. The island itself was briefly used as a penal colony and also a milling site. Many of the old remnant buildings and ruins date back to the 1800s. We're currently on the search for the elusive wombat. We have some signs here. We know that this is wombat poo. Why do we know that this is wombat poo?
Because they're square shaped.
We decided the best way to cover as much ground as possible in a day was by bike. Once we had rented our bikes for the day in Darlington, we headed south down the coast. We cruised past dry eucalypt forests on one side and crystal clear beaches with their turquoise waters and glistening white sands on the other. Currently at 4 Mile Beach, so I'm guessing that we're potentially 4 miles into the trail. The national park is very spectacular and diverse, not just in its evolving history, but also in its environmental beauty. We stopped for lunch and a quick swim at McRae's Isthmus, which is an amazing 3-kilometre long stretch of white sandy beach.
You didn't warn me it was this cold, Miranda. Here goes nothing.
Followed by an exploration of French's Farm, which is long since abandoned.
French's Farm.
On our return journey, we stopped at the famous Painted Cliffs, like a modern art project sculpted by sea and time in sandstone rocks.
Right now through the Painted Cliffs.
From there we encountered our first wombat, which Maria Island is renowned for. Mesmerised, we spent a long time taking many photos and videos before reluctantly leaving him behind.
So how many wombats we got now, Chicky? 5? But how many done here?
4.
Alright, so we got this guy here.
1 wombo, 2 wombo, 3 wombo, 4 wombo,
Oh.
4 wombats.
And you concur. Hey, Wombi.
Wombats prefer to come out in the cooler late afternoon sun.
Has called me over. She's excited because she saw a baby wombat. Oh, these little guys are in. So, Randy's, out of 10, what do you rate Maria Island?
15.
15?
Wombats, because that's the amount of wombats we saw today. So far.
So
The
far.
day's not over.
In fact, we started to lose count at about 20.
This is from 1843. It seems to be the chimneys that survive. Whenever you see ruins, there's always just chimneys, fireplaces. Grand Hotel from 1888.
With our remaining time, we walked uphill near the jetty to look at some of the old ruins. On our way back down, we ran into a wallaby who was just waiting for his mob to catch up before they all hopped away into the sunset.
The old cemetery.
We discovered the old prisoner's workshed before meeting my personal favourite wombat of the day, a little Joey with its mother, tagging along behind her every step of the way. At that point our ferry had arrived and we had to say goodbye to this magical place.
Perfect way to finish our trip on Maria Island.
After our day at Maria Island, we drove to Coles Bay at the start of Freycinet National Park. The setting sun was glowing on the rocky granite mountains that make this place so iconic.
So this is our campsite, Freycinet National Park. Peace. Not a bad place. Less than a minute into the track and we've already come across a little wallaby.
We started in the morning with our hiking ascent up to the Wineglass Bay lookout. Most tourists there for the day turn around at this point. However, we made our way down to the pristine beach below.
We're at Wineglass Bay right now, which is voted as one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Just in a moment, we're going to walk down to the end of the beach there, take it all in.
Its beauty is usually admired from above. However, exploring from the beach itself is a much more rewarding experience. The quieter end of the beach allows you to track down local seabirds like the orange-beaked oyster catchers.
So we've made it to the end of the beach. Now it's time to head back, go have some lunch. You want to see Miranda down there? Pretty spectacular, that whole view.
The view looking back towards the mountains provided a dramatic contrast to the peaceful white sandy bay with its crystal clear waters.
The way the water is sparkling right now is absolutely amazing. But when else will I be in Wineglass Bay? It's considered one of the most beautiful beaches on earth. Gotta at least jump in. God. Do I do it like a band-aid? I think so. Oh, alright, here comes a wave. Woo! That is cold.
From Wineglass Bay, we made our way to Hazard's Beach, encountering a wallaby along the way.
Rocco, the rock wallaby. Is that our trail? Oh, maybe that's why they call it Hazard's Beach. Well, Hazards.
Hazard's Beach was experiencing a king-high tide, and occasionally the water rushed up onto shore faster than we could climb to dry ground.
A pretty big tide coming in here. We're in the shell.
I just found another one now.
Which one do you like best? Turn the other one the other way. Right.
Beautiful.
Of shells.
Got a beautiful collection of shells.
Yeah.
My collection has grown just a little bit.
Shell collection.
I have many beautiful seashells.
The moment of truth for Miranda. Has to decide which shells to keep and which ones to throw back to the sea.
After a peaceful moment watching waves crash against the red rocks, we climbed up onto the sea cliffs to follow the coastal walk back to the start of our loop trail.
That's a rock and roll haircut.
That night was spent peacefully camping in the national park. We were, however, dramatically awoken the following morning with crashing winds of 45 kilometers per hour and heavy rains that made it difficult for us to pack our tent.
I'm gonna check the weather, see what it's
Now at Generat Beach on the Bay of Fires, just outside of Bonorong Bay. Have a bit of a look around. It's a little bit of an overcast day and a little bit windy, but it really doesn't take away from the beauty of this place. This is absolutely stunning. As always, Tasmania.
Once we packed up our tent, we started up the car and left Freycinet Bay as soon as possible, heading up to the Bay of Fires, our first stop, Generat Beach.
backflip onto this one. And then a triple twist over here.
After scrambling the iconic coloured rocks, which are covered with an orange lichen, we decided to go for a quick swim.
We'll go test the waters. This is going to be our little swim spot for the afternoon. Can't really think of a better setting. And has done it now, so I can't really kick him out. Woo. It's different for men. Oh, okay. Oh man. So we found our place for the night, Swim Cart Beach on the Bay of Fires, up on Tasmania's northeast coast.
We returned to the town of St Helens to grab some camping supplies, and the lady in the store recommended camping at Swim Cart Beach, and her recommendation was highly appreciated. We spent our last couple of hours before sunset scrambling the rocks and exploring the neighbouring beaches, which all seemed to be even more picturesque than the one that preceded it.
She's told me to stop at every beach, and finally we found the spot. This is a good place to finish. It's a dolphin. Gourmet meal for tonight. It's a restaurant with a view though. I could think of worse places to have dinner.
Yeah, that was delicious.
Very cool.
The following morning we visited a place known as the Gardens, which is a must-do when in the Bay of Fires. This iconic area is full of serene rock pools and is an Instagrammer's dream.
So we're at the Gardens here on the Bay of Fires. Absolutely spectacular place. If we spend an extra day anywhere, we'll be right here. Yeah, tell your sister she got an amazing beach named after her in Tasmania.
Been a long day.
St. Columba Falls. One of Tasmania's 60 great short walks. Must be pretty good.
On the way to Launceston, we took the advice of the St Helens Visitor Information Centre and stopped at St Columba Falls, which were absolutely spectacular. Followed a lush rainforest of high tree ferns to the cascading wonder. Winding road that... We also stopped afterwards at the nearby Piangana dairy farm for cheese tasting and ice cream before enjoying the rural setting of Lilydale on our way to Launceston. Where are we, Chicky?
Launceston.
Also known as Lawny.
I didn't know that.
There you go. Our final day before the Overland Track was prioritised by being organised for our big adventure. After dropping off our rental car, we visited every outdoor store in town while trying to admire the unique and historical architecture. My biggest tip for anyone heading to Launceston is to try the wood-fired pizza at the Mets, potentially the best pizza I've ever had outside of Europe.